everyone. Thank you for watching today's episode, How to Real Estate. And today we are going to talk about some pointers for buyers when you're looking at homes. And honestly, if you are a seller, if I were you, I would get out your little notebook and I would follow along, because these are things that that buyers are going to be looking at and taking into consideration when they are looking at your home. So first, let's talk about something that most buyers do not think of: water pressure. I have had more calls after closing regarding water pressure or water in general than most situations. So what you can run into with water pressure is that at different times of the day, buyers are looking at homes most generally when everyone is at work. And so the people in the neighborhood, no one is using their water. But then you buy the home, you close on it, and Friday night when the entire neighborhood is home, all of a sudden you have water pressure issues. So sometimes these things won't necessarily show up during a general home inspection. So it's something that every time you visit the home, I would check it so that you're checking it at different times of the day. But a good, strong water pressure is really, really important. So be sure and check that out. The second thing that I think that buyers sometimes do not take into consideration, and again, it can be really dependent upon the time of day that you're going to look at the property, is just noise in general. Noise pollution, noise from neighbors, noise from traffic, noise from a highway. There's so many different things that could go wrong here. You could be near a high school and it's a lovely, quiet Sunday afternoon and nothing is happening. Or on a weekday, you could actually hear ambient noise. Now, these are things that as a buyer, you want to be aware of. But I will be honest with you, I don't know that any of these are necessarily deal breakers. I just think it's important for you to know going in. If you're going to be at work and your children are going to be at school at the same time the school is open, then is it really that big of a deal if there's noise pollution during those hours? So it shouldn't necessarily break the deal. But if you are a day sleeper, then this could be an issue if every hour, is it every hour classes the bells ring and you have to hear the bell ring? That could be a problem. Church bells are sometimes an issue. I've had clients who were unhappy with hearing the church bells constantly. And probably the number one thing in this market is near a stadium, like a high school or a high school or a college stadium. One time I purchased a home and it was a Friday afternoon, and I legitimately thought somebody was in my front yard, and I had just gotten in for a soaking tub, to relax. Jill is cracking up. And I heard this man speaking, and I swear to goodness, it sounded like he was right outside my window. But it turns out I was near a college stadium, and it was the announcer. So it ended up being totally fine. It really was not an issue for me in the long run, but it was just something that kind of surprised me and took me back. So noise in general, know what you're getting into. Okay, this one is hilarious, but cell phone. I've had so many people go into contract on a home, purchase the home, and then they are panicking because their cell phone service is not any good. Now, the good thing is I would say over the last year and a half, 2 years, there are so many products that you can buy. I'm going to get them all wrong, but I believe it's like a cell phone extender or something. Yeah. Makes it better. Yeah. Probably not a cell phone extender, but what would that be? I don't know. Like just to make the cell service stronger. You guys know what I'm talking about. But pull out your phone while you're there. And the reason that's important is that could be added expense that you may need to purchase something, or it may be something within the system that you're actually going to rent, and that's an extra cost per month. So typically the current owner will be utilizing something. So if your phone is not getting great service, don't be afraid to ask what is the seller using, so that maybe the problem is already solved and you can just take it from there. Um, Drafty doors, drafty windows. I think that this is important, and this kind of goes hand in hand with what are the average cost of utilities. Now, I always get some feedback or blowback if I do a reel or a social media post on this. Here's why. The way, if I was selling my personal home and someone asked me what my utilities are, y'all are going to be so impressed. They are so low. They are so awesome because we're never home. Like, we are never home. It's just my husband and I. We're never home. But then we'll have an outrageous weekend because the grandbabies will be coming over and my husband will turn the pool heater on, which breaks the bank and makes me crazy. So we have these two crazy extremes. And so the thing you have to keep in mind as a buyer, the way the seller lives in the home may have nothing to do with the way you live in the home. So again, if you were purchasing my personal home, you would think, man, this is fantastic, super, super low. But again, we leave at about 7 a.m. and don't come home until 7 p.m. So there is no usage during the bulk of the day. And then occasionally you'll see those crazy high peaks when we're doing something with the grandbabies. So I do think it's a good idea to ask for the average utilities. If you are a seller and you've worked with me or plan on working with me, that's one of the things that I'm going to require you to give me up front so that when a buyer requests that information, we can send it right over. But don't be afraid as a seller to put a caveat in there and explain, it's just two people who live here, we're never here, or this is incredibly high because my husband will not quit turning on the swimming pool heater. If I ever go to sell my home, Jill, that might be an issue. They'll say it's too high. And then I'll have to get all of the old bills out and show them this is what happens. But also you do want to check and make sure it doesn't have anything to do with drafty doors, drafty windows. What I love about that, both of those are actually pretty easy to fix. And no, you do not have to purchase lifetime windows. That's a whole nother episode. Jill, remind me of that. Don't purchase lifetime windows, guys. But you absolutely can add weatherproofing to your windows, and it's super, super easy to do, and especially to doors. So don't let that be necessarily a reason not to purchase, but be aware of what is the current owner, but also find out, is it a family of 6? And, it's teenagers and they leave lights on and leave water running and all of the things. Just something to think about there. Next is, I think that it's really important to check out the neighborhood. A lot of times, and I've talked about this in other episodes where I tell sellers don't celebrate too soon, because during the inspection period, investigation period, the buyer has the right to walk away based upon something that's happening in the neighborhood. And we've talked about that, like who lives in the neighborhood? Does your ex-mother-in-law live at the end of the block? Does your old boss that you don't really care for? I actually, one time I had a young family who did not want to live next to their preacher.
Really?
I thought that was funny. I was like, okay, I mean, maybe, they were going to share backyards and they were like, yeah, we don't want to do that. I was like, okay, that's completely fine. So as a buyer, you do want to know what the neighborhood in general is like. And so it's not just a matter of driving the neighborhood or walking the neighborhood, but you should go on different days and different times of the day. So what you see on a Friday night could be completely different than what you see on a Tuesday morning. We actually had this happen where a young single guy purchased a home in a really nice neighborhood, and he was very, very appalled to find out that early mornings, the traffic going to the elementary school was outrageous. I mean, I'm like, if you've ever been in a school line dropping a child off, well, this was a single guy who had no children, and he just could not believe all the amounts of adults and cars and children. And he was just, yes, there was a school there. He saw the school every time he went to the home, but it just did not dawn on him that the only way to get kids to that school Yeah. So he was not happy, but fortunately that particular neighborhood had a back route out, and we were able to tell him about that and share it with him. And he's still there and still happy. So, but again, just knowing the neighborhood, going at different times and seeing what some of the issues are, and then trying to overcome those issues prior to being locked in, I think is super, super important. Um, and then this one is kind of unusual, but mapping your commute time. And that sounds like such a standard idea that you would know how long it takes to get to your school or to your work. But in our market, we are a growing community. And when I say that, that's kind of a nice way of saying we've got a lot of highway and road work. And that can be a, kind of a game changer for you. We recently had a situation where a young family purchased a home on the south end of town, and then the wife was offered a fabulous job about 45 minutes away, north of Tahlequah, and now they are actually looking at selling their home south of town and moving only, it'll be like 6 miles, but it will literally save them about 20 minutes because they have to go through 2 different school zones in the morning. And that's a big deal for the times that she's leaving her home and the times that she's coming in. So that adds quite a bit of commute time to her drive time. So being fully aware of how that affects commute time, what's happening at different times of the day when you're trying to get to the property or leave the property. These are things that sometimes buyers just do not think about when they're looking at the home. So as a buyer, write those down, think about them, check them out. And as a seller, if these are things that you can overcome or go ahead and correct, or give the new buyers some ideas on how to lower those utility bills. Don't turn on the pool heater. I don't know why we have a pool heater. Or upgrade, doors, windows, that type of thing. So these are keys that will help you as a buyer and also as a seller, being aware that these are things that a buyer would be looking at. So a little bit of a shorter episode today, but anytime buyers are asking me questions and I have more than a few asked, then I'm going to hop on here and give you guys some pointers. So I hope this helps. As always, please like, follow, share. Love your comments. Feel free to shoot me a DM and let me know if there's a topic that you would like for us to cover, or if there's like someone you would like to see on as a guest. We would love to have that conversation. Thanks for watching.